5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome back, Mr. Herring.
I am so sorry I'm late. Even though nobody cares. Nobody even knows I was late.
Well, you just admitted to something that nobody would ever have known.
Yeah.
We're never going to talk about it.
Yeah,
but
we're going to blame Palmer traffic. We'll say that nexus of McDonald's and Wendy's down by where I live, where it's always jam-packed and crowded. Took me 2 hours to get through that. Then the traffic on the bridge. Had to jump on the T. Yeah, no. I completely forgot about today. I thought it was Wednesday.
Listen, if it was anybody else, I'd be upset. But you are a dear friend of this podcast, so I appreciate you coming down. You know, when I texted you to say, "Are you coming?" You're like, "Okay, I'm on my way."
Yeah, so you knew.
I knew. You know, talking about that McDonald's, Wendy's, man, you take your life in your hands sometimes trying to get out of that place.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I got a brand new car, so I don't eat in the car anymore. So I have to bring it home. So it's got to be a right turn. Or I'm not, or it's going to be old and gross by the time I get home.
Yeah, sometimes I go all the way up to the cemetery and I do a U-turn and come back down just for the sake of, not dying.
why does it get that bad? Just you mean the traffic?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they come
really?
flying down that hill. Yeah, and if you're not paying attention because you have all the people coming out of Big Y, then you have the people coming out of McDonald's, you're trying to get out, and then you have the car dealerships right there.
Yep.
And, it can be crazy, and you're just heads on a swivel.
Yeah.
And the minute you go to pull out, because the exit and the exit to McDonald's is just like this. So if you're trying to pay attention to the traffic that's coming this way, and you're not checking out that car that's coming out, sometimes you'll make that turn and you're right on top of somebody. Yeah. So it gets it's a little scary.
It's a major bag alert. Let's just tell you that.
It is, and God knows, the last thing you want to do is get in an accident in front of McDonald's, or everybody's going to be staring at you eating their McNuggets,
and everybody's going to blame the fast food. So I told you fast food was going to screw you up,
and you can't safely get a milkshake.
No.
So it's almost better off just to drive all the way where we live. I mean, you've got people that watch this all over the place, though they're not going to understand. But the next town over in Ware, sometimes it's easier just to drive down there.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And circle back?
There's a Taco Bell there, so I'd rather go there anyway.
Yep.
Now that we've just established my eating habits.
The taco place in the weed shop. You can't get any better than that. Not that I do that. I'm just
No.
So welcome back to the podcast. And a lot has changed since we saw you last. You're working on a book.
Yeah, I got the book is all done. It is the Black Sabbath story, the Vinyl Testament. Where can I show the picture of the cover?
Right to
there?
the screen right there.
There we go. So that is the cover by my good friend Andrew Edge. It's an homage to Sgt. Pepper.
Nice.
A couple of reasons I wanted to do it that way was, first of all, everybody sees it and knows right away. Even if you're not necessarily a music fan, you're going to go, "Oh, Sgt. Pepper, I kind of get it." And a lot of people don't quite understand, because when you put the music together, it doesn't make sense. But Black Sabbath are huge Beatles fans.
Really?
They are massive Beatles fans. Ozzy had a couple solo releases back where it was like his John Lennon album. Like, he just channeled John Lennon. And it's amazing when you hear that and see that, because, again, you can't put the music and go, that doesn't make any sense to me. But these guys followed their career like crazy. And everything that they did, they played the Star Club in Hamburg in Germany and broke the Beatles record. And they were like, "That's awesome." But then at the same time, they're like, "We just broke the Beatles records. We can't do that." But
he does that accent so good. We should do a podcast one day just in English accents.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't even attempt it.
So the book is getting ready. I'm doing a GoFundMe, an Indiegogo. So if you go to Indiegogo.com and type in Black Sabbath, the book will show up. But what we're doing is we are ready to go and print. We just want to print more.
Right.
Because this is going to be my first book through my publisher that is going to be going into Barnes & Noble.
Wow.
So that's huge. So we want to have extra copies. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be everywhere. So this is the first time that this has happened. And the book should have been out in January, but my editor, Vin Ferrante, and the graphic designer, Blake, who are just the greatest guys. We've got a great relationship at Monarch. They wanted this to be perfect, where I'm just like, yeah, I wrote it. Can we just do it? Can we just publish it and print it, get it out there?
Yeah.
But these guys took so much time. Like, they would take 2 weeks going through a chapter and just relaying out the pictures and stuff like that. And it got really frustrating for me because I just want it done. And I kind of want to start thinking about what my next project is going to be. And I can't until this is done. So It's on Indiegogo now. There's some really cool incentives. We have a friend of mine who's in a band, Fiction 6, Mark Lanou. He's a great singer. He's got sort of an offshoot band called Farmer Bob. And it's a bunch of guys from other bands, and they just do cover songs and throw them up. And he's like, hey, can I do a Black Sabbath song for your fundraiser? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So they did an exclusive version of Children of the Sea, which was a Ronnie James Dio-led Black Sabbath song. And it was funny because this guy's a great singer, but I remember thinking, you're really taking a chance doing a Ronnie James Dio song because the vocals are so high. The inflection in the voice is just so powerful. And I heard it, I'm like, yeah, nothing wrong with this. This is amazing. They did a great job. My good friend Jimmy Bell, who's in the band House of Lords and Autograph now, he was the second runner-up to Zakk Wylde for Ozzy's guitar spot in, I think, 1987, 1988. And we did a whole interview. He's a great guy. He came up to the house. We did an interview. And there's a lot of stuff in the book with Jimmy, but I put the interview on disc so everybody can get the disc of this long interview. So you hear more about Jimmy's story. And what is cool is, like, Jimmy, unfortunately, really seemed to have gotten screwed over in a couple of situations. But he remains the ultimate positive guy. And there's a reason everybody loves this guy, and that's why.
Right.
Amazing guitar player, better human being.
Yeah.
So when you hear him talking about the story of, having a song stolen and things like that, it's when you hear the voice, it puts a little more depth and bite to the, how it happened. And when he talks about how it was reconciled, not financially, you can hear it again. You hear it in his voice, and it's like, it's just a really good story and a good ending. So we're offering that. We put hardcover books up. So anybody wants to go in, they can jump on and try the little things. The interesting thing I'm finding out is music. Indiegogo is great for comic books.
Right.
Like, everybody does it through comic books. But when you're doing a book, and you're telling, people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, hey, this is crowdfunding and this is what you do, it's not registering. So you're trying to explain. They're like, so do I pay the money and not get the book? Or if you don't raise enough, is it not coming out? And I'm like, no, it's coming out. We just want more copies. And the more we can get, the cheaper it is and the better off we can do. So, and pass the savings on to you. So it's really been interesting trying to explain to people. And they're like, well, we're just going to wait till it comes out. Okay, that's fine. But can I still get the stuff? No. This is the stuff that people put in for this. But the Indiegogo is like the most frustrating, horrible thing, because you look at it and you're like, wow, nobody likes me. Because I equate it to me personal, not anything else. And I look at it, and I think we're like 37% funded to a goal. I think we have 20 more days to do it. And usually they kind of kick up at the end. But I'm like, this is terrible. Why am I even doing this? I'll just pay the money. I'll just pay the money to get it done. But it's fun that it's in this stage. And by mid-July, I'll have copies, and then I can actually be done and put it to bed.
Nice. I tell you, the amount of stuff that he knows about music and, comic books and...
Oh, yeah, I can tell. Just on a little tangent he went down. Yeah.
There's not enough time in a year to get to the center of his brain to figure out what he knows. I'm telling you, it's like you with all the stuff that you know. I've always been fascinated with stuff that you come out with. Him is just, it's unbelievable.
It's useless. Absolutely useless.
I got a ton of it too. Just some of it doesn't go that deep.
Yeah.
Like, I can at least do books on it. I could do podcasts on it. But my wife would trade all of that if I could do math.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of us suffer from that affliction. But so tell me, bring me to the beginning. What was the inspiration for the book?
I wanted to do a book. This was really interesting. So this started out as a book called The Original Big Four. And it was a look at where hard rock and heavy metal originated from. When you look at bands, of our era, like Rat and Poison and Stryper and Motley Crue and Dokken and all those guys, they all came from somewhere. and they all were influenced by something. So those guys were all influenced by Judas Priest and Van Halen. Well, who influenced them? And to me, the original four were Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Uriah Heep. Those are the four bands that created the sound that really became what heavy metal is.
Really?
And in the mid-'90s, when bands like Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer, they're known as the Big Four. They're called the Big Four because they all released their debut albums pretty close to each other. They took a sound and created something completely different, and then they spawned an entire genre after that.
Right.
And that's the way I look at that. So I'm not a big Led Zeppelin fan, and I was struggling to try to put the same love and gusto that I was doing with Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep and Deep Purple. And I started realizing that you're reading it, and somebody could read it and go, dude, you love Black Sabbath. The other bands you like, and you don't like Led Zeppelin. So I started to realize maybe I should just separate the four and do one book at a time. And I'm doing this because what I also do is I go into anytime anybody from those bands release solo projects. Now, Deep Purple has had about 1,000 members, and you have Richie Blackmore, who came out of Deep Purple and started Rainbow. Rainbow had, I want to say, like 22 members in their like 9-album career.
Wow.
So, and then I'm like, oh, so I'm going to track all those guys? And then you have Whitesnake, who is the same way. David Coverdale sang in Deep Purple. On 3 albums, started Whitesnake, and Whitesnake's another one that probably had 200 members.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, great. So I've got to go through every single one of these albums. So I really just focused on the Black Sabbath one. Really enjoyed what I did. It's my 3rd music book. A couple of things that it really taught me about Black Sabbath was, first of all, no band has ever been screwed over by bad management, bad record labels, and and accountants, people that they put their trust in. No band has ever been as screwed over as these guys, that they were making millions of dollars and seeing pennies to the dollar.
Really?
Because their managers were sending them out on the road all the time. It's like, oh, you don't have an album out? Well, just go out and do some tours. So they're making a crap ton of money on tours, and the money's going to the management team. And then it's like, get back in the studio and record an album. So then they're recording an album. So the record label's now making money. They're out there, and everybody was giving them enough drugs and enough money so they wouldn't ask questions. And these guys are 4 guys from Birmingham, not the smartest guys in the world as far as business goes. So they just thought everybody, and that's the sad part, everybody that came in to help them, they thought legitimately wanted to help them. So they signed off all their music rights. They signed off everything.
Oh, wow.
So, they would go in, and Ozzy talks about how, he was like, oh, I want to buy a house for me and my wife. And this is pre-Sharon. So the management team would go, oh yeah, just tell us what house it is. We'll go buy it. So they bought the house. Ozzy's thinking it's his house. It's the management team that owns the house.
Oh.
And he's basically leasing it. So they're owning the property. He's not getting any equity. They're getting all the equity. So 4 times they did it with cars. So imagine some Rolls Royces in there. And they're giving them enough drugs to keep them going, to keep them high. And that's the biggest shame of that, because you look at like so much wasted potential. You look at so many horrible things that just happened to these guys because they didn't know any better. And by the time that they started asking questions, it was too late. When they bought out their old manager, they ended up having to buy him out and giving him a crap ton of money. And then they found out, oh, we don't even own the rights to our first 6 albums, 5 or 6 albums.
Can you imagine?
Which is all the amazing stuff.
Yeah,
when you think of like Iron Man, Paranoid, the song Black Sabbath, all of that stuff. They don't own that stuff. I don't know what they've gotten back over the years because laws have changed with music copyrights, but they just got completely screwed over. And then the other thing I learned at the very end of it is, don't hold in your emotions. If you have a problem, you need to talk about it. Because when Ozzy got fired in 1979, he went after Black Sabbath like crazy. When his solo career took off right away, he was just like, yeah, you know what? My album's this, and Black Sabbath sucks without me. And it just was bad. And as a kid watching this, I'm like, this is kind of mean. I don't know why he's doing it. He got fired. He was the screw up. But when they got back together in like 1999, after all these years of being apart, they had a little meeting, and Ozzy just said, "I want to know why you fired me." And they're like, "Well, because you were a mess." Okay, that's all I wanted. Like, that was, he just wanted to hear it from them.
Right.
And Ronnie James Dio, when he left the band, it was the same thing. It's like nobody was talking to each other. And you know how that is when you start thinking people are talking about you behind your back, it starts festering. And the other interesting thing, and I thought about this last night, was Bill Ward, the drummer, who was Ozzy's best friend in the band, was the one that they elected to go fire Ozzy. You know, you got to go talk to Ozzy. He's your best friend. You need to go fire him, which in my head, I'm thinking it should be everybody but the best friend. It should be the worst guy you get along with,
right,
or the pizza guy. And then, so when Black Sabbath, the original, got back together in the late 90s, a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. But then Bill Ward, the drummer, was no longer a part of it anymore. So I'm like, oh, I wonder if that was Ozzy's final dig in that one. Like, yeah, you fired me, you're done.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to say about just talk things out.
Yeah.
Just talk about it. It's good.
Yeah. What so you said that you know, being swindled out of that kind of money, that is insane. It's more crazy that nobody around them that was even remotely close to them said, "Hey, is everything okay?" Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, do we know like a rough estimate of the millions of dollars that they were swindled out of?
I can't even imagine. And you're going back to 70s money. I mean, when tours are making, like Led Zeppelin was making, I think they were making maybe even more than that, maybe like $10 million a tour.
Wow.
And they were doing massive stadiums. They had a manager, Peter Grant, who was a psychopath, but he protected his boys. And that was, you know, whether or not he did it because he knew he was going to make money, he protected them, and he made sure they got everything they needed. The plethora of people that came through the Black Sabbath way did not do that at all. So these guys sold, their first 5 albums went platinum, double platinum.
Wow.
They were getting nothing. They got signed to a crappy deal because they wanted to sign a record deal. And then when they Warner Brothers went to the UK to say, "Hey, we want to sign you to a record deal with Warner Brothers," they gave them a crappy deal as well. So every deal that they signed was crappy. And I mean, it's probably, honestly, you look at it, it's probably in the hundreds of millions that they lost.
Oh, Jesus.
And think about how many times you've heard like Iron Man used in a commercial, Paranoid used in a commercial. Yeah. When they fired their manager and had to pay him off to leave, that guy ended up putting together a greatest hits album that the band didn't even know about.
Oh, what a stab in the back.
And that was one of the stories that it's a depressing story, but Black Sabbath were on tour, and a fan brought up the album We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll to have Tony Iommi, the guitar player, sign it. And he's like, "What's this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a new Black Sabbath album. It just came out." And he's looking all over it going, did any of you guys sign off on this? Nope. And then they found out, yeah, you didn't have to sign off on it. You don't own it.
Oh,
just brutal.
Because it was all content no one knew about.
Yep.
So it wasn't part of any agreement.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep. I mean, can you imagine going to sign it? You're signing stuff like, oh, people want, wait, what is this? And it made me feel bad because that was the first Black Sabbath album I bought.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, I was part of the problem. But you didn't really know.
You wouldn't. Those are all behind the scenes kind of things that you would never in a
but
million years
I can almost imagine that. Like, let's just say, you're a bunch of kids that don't know any better.
Yeah.
And you make it big, and someone comes up to you, it's like, listen, sign a few papers, and anything you need, we'll get it for you.
Yeah.
Without, you're not going to read the papers because it's not going to make any sense anyway. And then whenever you ask for something, you get it. So why would you question? I need a house. I need a car. Yeah, I want that. Oh, and it comes to you. You're not going to be like, well, how did I pay for this? Where's my bank account? It comes from,
Yeah.
I ask for it and it comes to me.
Yeah.
So.
And it's a complete opposite. It's a polar opposite of Kiss's story. Because I'm for some reason I got into a Kiss mode, so now I'm go back and rereading all the autobiographies, and Kiss were the ones that had management that actually had their best interest at heart.
Those guys own the rights
and
to
wanted
everything.
to make everything, and they did it right.
They're like the Disney of rock and roll.
Can I tell you though, the last time I went to a Crew concert, Kiss was there.
Yeah,
and I was not impressed. As a matter of fact, I wanted to leave.
I honestly, you can hate me. I actually don't really like their music. I appreciate them as musicians.
Oh, look at the time.
Yeah.
I got to go to Wendy's and go get a biggie bag.
I appreciate them as musicians and especially their business model.
Yeah.
But I just never interested me. So.
Yeah.
Well, for me, Kiss was, I think so in there. So 76 was like when it really started to break for them. 75, 76. To me, they were a musical comic book. These guys are superheroes, and being a comic book guy, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of get into this, and I get this. And you look at you go back and look at the old stuff and some of the songs, and you're like, yeah. And they're another group that are huge Beatles fans. Like Gene Simmons, his first solo album, when the bands went and did 4 solo albums simultaneously, which talk about having enough cojones to think you can pull that off. His album sounds like a Beatles album.
Really?
And they always wanted to be the hard rock Beatles. And when you look at, you talk about a business model, the Beatles, everybody sang. You obviously had John and Paul that did the majority. So that was Gene and Paul. And then you had Ace, who sang quite a bit, and that was George Harrison. And then you had the cute, lovable drummer Ringo, who, sang all the fun songs, and that's what Peter Criss did.
Yeah.
So they patterned a lot of what they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, completely different stories. And the same with Led Zeppelin. It's, you look at all that stuff and think, how did some guys get it right and other guys just missed it?
It's true. Like, I think that day that I watched the concert, I'm very visual too. So It's not just about the music. It's what they're doing on stage. And all they were doing was coming back together at certain points of the stage and sticking the tongue out and doing the same. It was the same thing 50 times. And I'm like, all right, guys, I got it. The first couple times was cool. Can we get on to something else? And we had really, really good seats. So I think that was one of the things I was upset about. Like, I got really good seats for this, and I was really pissed. And I traditionally like their music.
Yeah.
But that day, watching I just wasn't a fan. But getting back to Black Sabbath for a second, they sold over 70 million records worldwide as of 2013.
Yeah.
That's a shit ton of records.
A lot of records.
And it's a band too that was also considered like, they were Satan worshipers. That's what everybody thought.
Oh, really?
They weren't looking at the fact that they were just singing sort of about the negativity going on. Like, they came right out of the Summer of Love, where you had the hippies and peace, love, and happiness. Then Charles Manson went nuts in California.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden people are afraid. And that's and you had Vietnam going on. So that's what Black Sabbath kind of gravitated to, is that negative side, where they grew up in Birmingham, England. K.K. Downing and Judas Priest described Birmingham to an American as, it's like Detroit, but a lot less bleak.
Oh,
Or a lot more bleak than Detroit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like a great place in the 60s and 70s to be growing up. I guess it's completely remodeled itself now. But that was what they were into, and that's what they were doing. So their music, and they've got no radio play. So that's 70 million albums with very little radio play.
Wow.
No one would play that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you ever find out how they got the name Black Sabbath?
From a movie.
Oh, was it really?
There was a Boris Karloff movie called Black Sabbath. They were touring as Earth. That was the name of their band. It was Earth.
Oh, that's right. That's what it says here. Yeah.
And even on the cover, their first name was the Polka Tuck Blues Band. So that's why they're standing.
I was just going to ask you if that's true.
Right over there.
So I'm on Wikipedia right now as we're going through, is just so I can have some questions to ask. And I had to reread that a couple times. I'm like, Polka Tuck Blues and what?
Yeah. And then there was another band called Earth touring in the UK. So they would get booked and they'd show up, and it's like, well, you guys aren't like hippie, lovey music. What's going on? So they realized they had to change the name. They were rehearsing right across from an old movie theater, and they saw that when Black Sabbath, the movie, was playing, or any horror movie, people were in droves, because they were like, people love to be scared. And they kind of do.
Yeah.
So that's where the name came from.
Wow. He's just I just love it. And I'm reading this, and he's like almost dictating what Wikipedia says line by line.
Check who authored the page real quick.
Are you sure you're not a robot? Because I'm pretty sure someone downloaded this before you got here. This is insane. I love this, man. It's I was at an Aquanet concert this weekend.
Yes, and what did you think of my friend Mike Abdow, the guitar player?
Yeah, the one with the double bass, or the other one, the regular guitar.
He's got regular guitar.
Yeah. It was like that funky shape.
He was
on point.
He is like, it's funny because this guy is one of the most amazing guitar players I've ever heard. I don't like instrumental albums because I want to follow a singer.
Yep.
But his playing is so fluid.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this is where he makes his money. You know, you make your money in the cover bands, so you're playing out every weekend. You're getting out there. But it's like, this is a guy that when you say, you talk to people like the Andrew Edge, the guy who did the cover, he's like, oh, he's a touring guitar player with Fate's Warning. He's all over Europe. He's on the live album. I mean, he is an amazing player. Yeah.
Yeah, they were jamming. I'll tell you what, so we saw him at Kenny's campground.
Yep.
And I told Kenny like a million times, I'm like, I'm having the best time. I mean, they were playing Rat, Van Halen.
Oh, yeah, no, they're impressive.
You're not even kidding. Like,
yeah.
It was a great time.
I've seen them a few times, you know, when they would play the bars in Chicopee.
It's my first time seeing them.
Oh, really?
That was my first time. I think I might have seen them back in the day, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, because they've been around for, well, they just had like their 20th or 25th anniversary.
Weird,
yeah, and she was singing like, the voice on her was just insane. And I, you know, of course, the way where they were playing, I got to go up close on the other side of the wall to watch. I could have stayed there like a little kid all day long and just watched. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, I love live music. I'm so psyched it's back. I've already put together my concert list for the next, like, mostly into September.
So what does this list look like?
So in 2 weeks, I'm going to be going to see a Kiss cover band.
Oh, wow.
Called Dr. Strangeways. Strangeways was a Kiss song. I don't know why they got the Doctor. I know Dr. Strange is a superhero, but I don't know why they combined it. I'm supposed to interview one of the guys this weekend. So I have that one, and that's up in the Greasy Luck Pub in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Great little place to go see a show. So I'm going to that one, and then it is Mr. Big's lead singer, Eric Martin, and a couple other guys, some guys from Trickster, Steve Brown, and they're kind of touring together, doing the best of Trickster and Mr. Big.
Oh, wow.
So excited about that one. I'm interviewing Eric in a couple weeks. There's a band called Max Sabbath.
Where's that one? Where's the Trickster one?
That's going to be in New Bedford. So these are all, like, New Bedford was the only, it's the Vault is the music side of it.
Yeah.
Great food there too. They're the only place right now that is really opened up for, like, the national bands. So it's good to see that. So that's kind of, I'm like, all right, New Bedford every 3 weeks, I'm going to be going there because they're the only ones putting in the shows. So excited about that one. But there's a band called Max Sabbath.
Okay, yeah.
And
have you seen them?
Oh my gosh.
I saw them up in Northampton.
Oh, did you really?
Oh, yeah, or down in North. I don't know, where are we geographically from Northampton right now? But
south of well, technically.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Oh,
like
so they wear McDonald character costumes. The lead singer dresses
really?
like Ronald McDonald, but very demented. The bass player, I think, is
one of them is Mayor McCheese.
Mayor McCheese, and then Grimace is a guitar player, and then the drummer is the Hamburglar, but he wears Peter Criss Kiss makeup.
Oh my god!
And they do, like, instead of the song "Nib" by Black Sabbath, they do "Nibble" nibble. Instead of Iron Man, it's Frying Pan.
They're like food themed Black Sabbath parodies,
and
it's wild.
There is an amazing video I just saw.
Thank you, Mrs. Pluff.
Oh, thank you.
You want another one? Oh, you got.
There is an amazing video from Ozzy and Jack's Road Show, which is the show that Ozzy does with his son Jack, and Jack and his granddaughter bring in Max Sabbath to show Ozzy. He's never seen him before. He is laughing so hard, and the lead singer, the Ronald McDonald guy, stays in full character. Ozzy's like, "Where are you guys from?" "We're from Birmingham," and
what's the name of those guys again?
Max Sabbath.
Max Sabbath. So I saw them, and I know you've probably heard of Clownvis.
No.
Okay, so Clownvis is a clown performing Elvis tunes, like Elvis covers,
perfect.
but like a clown. And I'm trying to think of an example, like just with gags and like glitter bombs and stuff like that, like just ridiculous, like taking Vegas Elvis over the top. And they're both equally as impressive and ridiculous, both Max Sabbath and Clownvis.
And there's another group. I want to say, if I get it right, Metalachi, which is a band that does mariachi versions of heavy metal songs. And they toured with Max Sabbath a few years ago, and I got to see them.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
I'm looking at pictures of Black Sabbath right now. This is absolutely, if anybody out there wants to Google this, it's MAC Sabbath. Just the first pictures that come up, you just want to laugh your ass off. And some of these pictures, they're very dark, like and
they're
almost like a
decent
horror
musicians.
version. Are they really?
And I think I'm pretty sure they are regularly a Black Sabbath tribute band.
Probably are.
I think obviously under a different name. I think they kind of go both ways with it, I guess.
It could be. This is hilarious. This makes me want to go see them just based on this.
Yeah. So they're at the end of, I think they're at the end of August.
Oh, really? And that's going to be in Connecticut too?
Yep. Oh no, that's New Bedford.
Okay. Yep.
So then
New Bedford, Mass. Yeah.
we also have so for the 4th. So I think you're invited to our house for the 4th. So we are going to be having a musician come. And it's a good friend of mine, Rob Gaillard, who performs as the Nomadic. And we're trying to work it out money-wise, but it looks like he's going to play, and as boats come into the cove, he's going to be playing to the boats in the cove and then the people all around him.
Oh, wow.
So excited about that.
And what kind of music are we talking about?
The opposite of Black Sabbath. He's
Really?
very I don't even like to say he's very Ed Sheeran. He doesn't sound like Ed Sheeran, but it's that acoustic guitar. He's very emotional with the music.
Folky almost.
It's like a very contemporary folk. But his lyrics are like you hear the music, you hear everything together. You're like, I've never been to Georgia, but man, that sounds like a really beautiful sky. I mean, you're just like that. His songs are great. He's such a good guy. His history is he works for the UN. I don't know if he still does. But he's Australian through the UK, and he traveled everywhere in the world. So his accent's really hard to kind of pinpoint.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping we can make it work because I would love to have him come out and play.
Now, do you struggle with that kind of music? Or is your genre strictly where it is? Or are you pretty cool with?
I will listen to anything. So at the same time of listening to Black Sabbath and Kiss, I mean, I love the Beatles. They're the best group ever of all time. I love Barry Manilow. Like I get down into that.
Doesn't?
Like I could pop in Barry Manilow, follow it up with the Sex Pistols, Motorhead, and to me in my head it makes complete sense. Like everybody else will be like, "Whoa, there's a little bit of a disconnect right there," but there isn't. It all makes complete sense to me. So I love Barry Manilow. One of the best concerts I ever went to. Right, it was funny. I saw the Kinks, and then about a week later with Joan Jett. Then it was Barry Manilow, and then somebody else, and then it was like I got married.
Right,
like the week before I got married, it was like all these concerts.
Yeah.
But I love Barry Manilow. Love Barry Manilow.
Wow.
I don't know if I could do a book because that would be a little hard.
That'd
to do.
be interesting.
It's funny, like sometimes I'll be working out in the garage, and depending on the night, I'll just be listening to all kinds of different music. And one night my wife will come out, and I'm listening to like Pantera. Yeah. And then next night she'd come out, and I'd be listening to something like Barry Manilow, and then next night it's Public Enemy. Yeah. And she's just like I never our Spotify playlists. If you're on Spotify, and it kind of like structures things based off your listening history.
Right. It doesn't know where to go.
It has nowhere to go. And there's 5 lists, and none of them make any sense. Like it just their algorithms still are not ready for what I listen to.
Mine just said you're too difficult. Go to Pandora.
I every day when I leave work and I get to my last stop of the day, I throw DMX on religiously. Yeah. And that's my tune to like kind of detune, and then it gets wicked eclectic from there. Like I'm all over the board, but I like that because it gives me some range. Yeah. I don't want to be tied down to one certain kind of music. Although, I guess if I had to pick, I was fortunate enough that when we were young, rap really started to make its way out, and I was just awestruck by rap. And Public Enemy, hands down, I'm a big Daddy Kane fan. Yep. Public Enemy, Tribe Called Quest, those were my kind of like my. Although I was a big EPMD fan.
Yeah, you can't even like narrow it down to one, man.
Yeah, it's got to be like 4 or 5, but definitely Public Enemy #1, followed by Big Daddy Kane, and which is weird because I was always an Iron Maiden fan before that, and I don't know where I flipped, at what point I flipped, but then you were talking years that you get into something and it goes like next thing you know, you're 5 years out, and then you might switch again. That's always fascinating about how much time I would give to something and then look back and go, holy shit, that was 5 years I've been,
5 years of my life I devoted to you, Iron Maiden. 5 years.
I had the shirts, I had the long hair, and I'll tell you when I switched. I'll be honest with you. I can tell now.
It was a girl.
No, it was I stayed back in 8th grade, and we talked about it on the podcast one day. But I was being bullied by somebody, and I ended up staying back, and I didn't want to go to school. So when I repeated the 8th grade, I came back. I went to the barber, had my head shaved. It's like a crew cut. Got rid of all those clothes because I somehow I attached that to that, and it wasn't really one or the other. You know what I mean? I just wanted to start a new look and a new thing, so that's what I went to. But the rap was a very organic flip. So I would say right about maybe freshman year of high school or so, maybe sophomore year. That's when it really took hold, and I was blessed enough to see Public Enemy in concert. I met Terminator X. I met Flavor Flav for maybe like 30 seconds, and I was supposed to meet Chuck D, and he walked right by me.
Nice.
And they were supposed to be ushering him over to meet. It was like a meet and greet, like a not an official meet and greet, but they had like the people that he would stop for like 5 seconds and then go on to the real people. So I was part of that crew, but he walked right by. I was just like,
So take the Black Sabbath and go to rap. One of the biggest Black Sabbath fans you'll ever meet is Darryl McDaniels, DMC.
Yep.
He is a huge Black Sabbath fan. And when I got to know him about, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I went to interview him and he had a Black Sabbath shirt on. And I'm like, this is kind of weird for me because I didn't know a whole lot about his past.
Right.
And we did the interview. I think it was the first thing I said to him was, I got to ask you, you're wearing a Black Sabbath shirt. And he's like, oh, yeah, I love Black Sabbath. And he's going on and on and on about the great, like, I love Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and all this stuff. And I loved all these bands. And so we did the interview. We chatted a little bit more. We would text each other for a while. Then the next year, and the reason I met him was he is a comic book writer. And he was at New York Comic Con. He had a table set up. So the next year I went over and I brought, I think it was my UFO book came out. So I brought him a UFO book and he's like, oh, I can't wait to read this. And it was so funny because I had my daughter with me, my oldest daughter, Becky, who was probably 21, 22 at the time. And this was only a few years ago. And we started talking and Darryl looks at her and goes, I bet you don't even know who I am. And she goes, you're DMC. You're from Run DMC. And he goes, your dad told you that. And he goes, well, she goes, yeah, but I know who you are. And he's like, can you even name one song other than Walk This Way?
Oh, yeah.
And she named like 6 or 7 songs.
Yeah.
And the two of them started rapping It's Tricky. So, of course, no cameras for that. We weren't filming that one. But he is a huge Black Sabbath fan. And when Black Sabbath played Live Aid in 1985, the next band up on stage is Run DMC. And Darryl was like, just, I guess, they're all getting ready to go on, getting themselves ready. He's just sitting there staring, going, that's the original Black Sabbath. They're back on stage. I cannot believe this. And focused more on that than anything else. Wow. Like he was just so into it. And Body Count, that was Ice-T.
Ice-T.
So we can kind of turn rap to Black Sabbath again. So probably Black Sabbath's biggest boner move they ever did was you had Anthrax and Public Enemy do Bring on the Noise.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that the song?
Bring the Noise.
Bring the Noise.
Yeah.
That absolutely works. It is so organic because the guys in Anthrax love rap and Chuck D loves rock. So you had all those connections right there. Run DMC used to use Aerosmith and Billy Squier records to sample.
Yeah.
So there was a relationship there, but the record label, when Black Sabbath was doing their last album before the Ozzy reunion in this was 95 maybe, they did an album Forbidden, and they demoed all the songs, and they brought it to the record label, and the record label sort of had a right to do this because they weren't making, like the albums were not selling. So they're like, we want you to do something different. We're going to bring in Ernie C., who is a guitar player in Body Count. Now, Ernie wears all black, crosses, and plays left-handed like Tony Iommi, because that's his hero. So they're like, why don't we combine basically Body Count and Black Sabbath, and you guys can put an album together. And they called it Forbidden. It is terrible because it's not organic. That's the problem.
Right.
You hear the demos, and the songs are like, these are really strong songs. But then you hear later on when they put it out, and I'm like, why is Ice-T rapping on this song? Because it doesn't make sense. It's just literally like, we're going to throw a whole different genre right into this 30-second spot and then go back to Black Sabbath, and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And it was a really bad, I mean, they were trying to do anything. The record label, again, they had every right. It's like, look, you guys have sold 50 albums of your last 5. We need to get some return. And it's funny watching some of the interviews because they're putting on brave faces like, oh, we think it's the best album we've ever done. We're really proud of this one. And in your head, you're going, you're not. You hate this. And
right, yeah.
It was a really, really tough thing. And I think this month is its 95. So it's like the 23rd anniversary of the album or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of it.
It's interesting. There's some good stuff in there, but when you can get the bootleg stuff, I mean, thank God for YouTube, because for years I was hearing about this. I forgot what they call it, the mega mix, which is the original, the rough mix. So it's the rough mix of this album. Like, I really need to find this. And you'd go to like all the bootleg places, like, you know, you would know, like, psst, you got this one. I need this because bootlegs are illegal.
Right.
And you're asking, and I could never find it. Now it's on YouTube in like 35 different forms.
Oh.
But you hear it and you're like, okay, this is good stuff. And then you hear the real album and it's not good stuff.
Tuned it all out.
Oh,
yeah.
dropped the ball. And you had Cozy Powell, who's one of the hardest, heaviest, best drummers that ever lived, trying to play rap grooves. And it doesn't work because that's not his thing.
His gig, yeah.
And you can't tell a drummer, hey, you've been playing for 40 years, you've been playing a certain way. We need you to change it up a little bit. It's not going to work. And when you hear it, it's that album.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
I was telling the wife when we were listening to Aquanet that night, I said, isn't it amazing how we can pick these instruments that were been fine-tuned over the years, you know, because you think back to, you know, making a flute out of a piece of wood and, you know, you're only getting a couple little tunes out of it, you know, to what we're doing now and how synergy comes together and you're making these phenomenal tunes. You know, I always think back, like and we'll get into aliens a little bit later because I know that's our gig, because with everything going on, right, I got to pick your brain a little bit about it. But you should imagine if an alien came and we played, you know, Black Sabbath or, you know, a little bit of Motley Crue. You know, what do they would think of that?
Oh, they love it. Of course they would. They gotta have some.
He goes, shout at the devil.
Oh yeah, we know we work for the devil.
Like, wait a minute, I heard this on a recording you guys sent me a few years ago.
That's right. So how do you get a hold of these people? Like, how did you get started interviewing these people? Tell me how that all came about. Because you've actually interviewed some really. I
mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm trying to think of when the first music one. I think the first music interview I ever did was with Scott Ian from Anthrax. And if you know Anthrax, or you know what they look like, he's a guy who has a goatee down to here. So Scott had a book out, and he was at Boston Comic-Con, and I walked up to get the book autographed. He goes, oh, and I had my Doctor Who jersey, and the Doctor Who book just came out that I wrote, and he's like, oh, my wife and I just started watching Doctor Who. I'm like, I'll be right back. Ran over, got a book, gave him a book. We took a picture of him holding mine holding his books. After I said it, I'm like, let me clean that one up. And I go, if you have time, would you like to do an interview? Would you mind? He's like, oh, absolutely. So we did one interview. And then about 2 or 3 months later, Michael Sweet from Stryper was doing a solo acoustic show. So I reached out to his people and said, hey, if he could do an interview, I'd love it. So we hooked up, we did an interview, and Michael and I hit it off really well, which ended up to why I started doing the Stryper podcast. But that really opened up the majority of the doors. Like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you're working for a real band, so we're going to start sending you music. And that's what happened. It's like Frontiers Music, who releases Stryper's albums. They're like, oh, you're doing their podcast. Yeah, we're going to send you the album before it comes out so you can review it. And I'm like, great, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to buy the CD. I'm going to get it, and I'm going to get it months before everybody else does. So then it started. Then it was Frontier started going, hey, if you like the Stryper one, what about this album? It's kind of, they have that same kind of 80s metal feel, but more aggressive. And I'm listening to that going, wow, this is great. Now, through the reps that I have, that I work with, and all the record labels, I probably get 30 albums a month to review. And I'm so far behind.
Wow.
And that's the problem, because I've missed a couple. There's a band called Seventh Crystal out of Sweden. And I think I just was like, I don't like the name. I don't like the album cover. I'm going to skip it. And then all of a sudden I was like trying to do some work or doing something. I put it on just to listen. I'm like, album of the year. This is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Really?
And so the reviews happen, and then all of a sudden, you know, the reps are like, hey, do you want to interview this guy? So then all the interviews start to happen there. Then it turns into, hey, they can do interviews when they're on the road. Do you want to cover the show? So that's why I haven't paid for concert tickets in 5 years. So I just get sucked into all of those, which is great. And I always tell people it's like I may have to do 4 shows in a week, and it sucks because you start losing the enjoyment when you're doing that many.
Oh, do you really? Yeah.
I did.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
I did. Oh boy, 11 shows in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's a little too much.
And because it was like, you know, like my wife is all upset. She's like, "You're going out again, another concert?" I'm like, I can't say no. And it was funny. The last concert of the tour was the only one that my wife Amy wanted to go to, and that was Kansas. So what an amazing show. That was great. And what's funny with that is my wife does not she loves the music, she loves the concerts, but she wants to go and leave. Where I'm like, I got to go backstage and hang out and do interviews and get free food off the tray. And she does not like that. So that's a little uncomfortable for her. So I end up going to a lot of shows by myself. I'll try to do phone interviews, but I'd really rather do the live. I love sitting backstage, hanging out with somebody after they go on, because you can see the eyes. Like the phone interviews are good, but when you're with somebody and they're still huffing and puffing after just getting off stage, it's a lot of fun. But that's where it just started from, like that one interview, you know, with Michael Sweet from Stryper. That was the biggest thing that really just exploded for me.
Yeah.
And then, like with a lot of bands, I've gotten really close to a lot of bands, which causes issues when people split from the bands.
Isn't that no? That has always bothered me.
It's like being both friends when the couple breaks up.
Yeah. Like LA Guns. LA Guns is the best example, because for up until about 2 months ago, there were 2 bands claiming the name LA Guns.
Oh, really?
And I've gotten to know guys from both camps. And I guess the lesser of the LA Guns is now called Riley's LA Guns after their drummer. Those guys, they're super great guys. They are really good guys. They're talented musicians. But it really put a strain on like the regular LA Guns thing.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets a little goofy.
So do you have some people that will not have an interview with you because you're friends with them?
No, but I won't say names. But I did have somebody that I've interviewed that is probably one of the closest people in the music industry that I'm with. The first thing he said was, because he plays with a couple other people, and this one guy went on a tangent about another guy that I'm very close with. And the first thing he did, he goes, "Hey, just to let you know, I don't have any beef with so-and-so. That's between those two." And I'm like, okay, I didn't really think that very much.
Thanks for making it awkward for me now.
Thanks for letting me know. But you do get a lot of that. And it's funny because we're all a bunch of old men now. But old men still have egos and still get pissed off at each other. I thought it was just, it's done. It's over with. But it's, they're still mad at stuff that happened in the 80s.
Wow.
So in what format do you put out the interviews and the reviews? Is that I know you said you have this Stryper podcast.
So I do the Stryper podcast. Yeah. I do a show called Power Chords, the Power Chords podcast. And then I do another one that's a combination, and this is a huge combination that really works, comic books and music. So I do comic book reviews, and then, hey, we'll be right back, but here's the new one from Seventh Crystal, and I'll play new music.
Right.
And it's great because most comic book people like music, and most musicians love some part of geek culture.
Yeah.
So now when I do interviews, I always do a little 3-minute or a 3-question thing for somebody for that show. Be like, all right, who's your favorite superhero? What's your favorite cartoon growing up? And the break question is Star Trek or Star Wars, which is better?
Ooh. Yeah.
And we always know it's Star Wars. Star
Yeah.
Wars is the best.
Yep.
Um,
So let's dive into that for a second.
Yeah.
So is it 3 questions you always ask? Okay, start from number 1 again.
so the first question is, who is your favorite superhero?
Okay, what's yours?
My favorite is Captain America.
Okay.
Pre-movie Captain America. We're talking since the 70s Captain America.
Okay. What's yours?
I'd go Superman. It's just like the only one I really remember from my childhood. I wasn't really a comic book person.
Yeah.
So it was really the Christopher Reeves movies
Yeah.
were probably my first introduction to, any type of comic book character on like the, TV, I guess.
Yeah. So mine would be Batman. I mean, we have the coolest shit. That costume is and I love the fact that he's almost like Superman, where he's, has that alter ego.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, I like the fact that, it's that dark, like the Dark Knight was huge for me. That I think he was the best one so far. And I've always been fascinated with, like, when you tell people, like, or they hear there's going to be a new Batman and they're like, oh, that guy's going to suck. Oh, they get all crazy about it. I love the fact that we mix it up.
Yeah.
Because that's what I look forward to. Like, let's see how he knocks it out of the park. Like Ben Affleck,
I thought he did great.
I thought he did
It's like
phenomenal.
it's like James Bond.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
There can
Right.
be a different James Bond, and they're all going to have their positives and their negatives, but hopefully they just keep getting better. Yeah.
I know some guys that will not watch another Batman because their character, down the road isn't in there anymore.
I don't know if you and I have ever had this discussion. Now, The Dark Knight was the Joker one, right?
Yep.
Hated that movie.
No, not the Joker. It was Bane.
Oh, that was the first. Oh, that was the first one. Wait,
No, Dark Knight is Christian
Dark Knight
Bale.
Returns.
Right.
Dark Knight's was Christian Bale's second one, I think.
So that was the Joker one.
No, the Joker one was
Dark Knight Returns.
yeah. There's been
it
two
must have been
Joker
the Dark.
ones.
Yeah, so it was the Dark Knight Returns.
So whichever one had the Joker,
That
did
was the
not
first.
like that
That was
But-
the first one.
But which Joker?
Yeah, which Joker?
the what's his the guy who died? Well, I can't even think of his name.
Oh, Christian. No, not Christian.
Yeah, see, I don't know him well enough.
That guy.
So Jack
you
Nicholson was the
didn't,
first
you didn't like
one.
him?
No, nope.
Wow.
I'm like
Oh,
the,
Heath
I'm like
Ledger.
Heath
Heath
Ledger.
Ledger.
Yeah,
one.
yeah, Heath Ledger.
That might have. That's one of the Dark Knight ones, but
Yeah.
Depressing.
So
I
I
just didn't like it.
So,
I
the
was,
one with Bane changed my.
when he sounded like Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Talking through.
Let's go shit in the corner.
What did he just say?
Yeah. No, but I thought that was the best Joker. Although Joaquin Phoenix knocked me off my shoes, I thought he did
in the
phenomenal.
Joker spinoff.
I didn't even.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it.
You didn't see
I
it
didn't
yet?
see it.
Oh man, I'll tell you, it put a spin on mental illness in the craziest way. Like, I like seeing progression, right? So I like seeing a character go from one and just go batshit crazy, and he just really took it to a whole new level. As a matter of fact, I have, and just as we're talking, I swear to God, life is funny. So my friend Anthony is a painter, and he just sent me a message. I wanted him to paint a mural of the Joker, and it's the Joker from the Batman Returns and the new one together, like a split down the middle.
Yep.
But I want him to do it. Like, I don't want the split to be even. I want it to be very jagged in the middle and very like, I want that to tell a story in the middle of that fight between two different.
Like ripped and then put back together.
Yeah,
again.
yeah. And so he sent me a like a kind of scratch copy that he was going to start, and it was pretty sick.
Nice.
So,
But I do love Batman. I mean, I have a Batman tattoo.
do you really?
But I read probably
It's not a tramp stamp, is it?
yes.
Oh, is it really?
No.
Yeah, it's it's the bat signal
Yes.
right across.
Yes, when I bend over to pick something up, people see it. So what is wrong with that guy? No, it's right above my Usagi Yojimbo on the arm. But I mean, I still get 6 Batman books a month.
Wow.
Brand new comics a month. But yeah, so I have always Daredevil's another one of my favorites
I like
because
that.
I always love the guys that are basically pretending to be superheroes.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have the powers, but we're gonna kind of go in there.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty neat that someone who's blind
Yeah.
can do all that. I was pretty impressed by that movie too. Again, Ben Affleck.
See, and I loved it. I'm another one that, like, I love that movie, and not everybody does.
Yep. Is it called Dark Knight Rises? Is that what we're talking about? Now it's called Dark Knight Rises. That's the one.
You're gonna have to look up the entire, videography of it, or whatever you call it.
So what's the second question?
So second one is, what was your favorite cartoon growing up?
Okay.
Oh boy, I either go back and forth between the Super Friends or Battle of the Planets.
Ooh.
If you remember Battle of the Planets,
Ooh,
it was
I do.
G-Force.
Yeah.
And it started out as Gatchaman in Japan. And I love those old Gatchamans because in the 70s, Japanese culture accepted a cartoon where hundreds of people died.
Right.
And Americans, they didn't. So you would see the translations, like some ship would blow up, like a plane would crash and everybody would die on it. And in the Japanese ones, they just left it. But in the American ones, oh, good thing there were just robots in there. Or, oh, everybody got out with life rafts and life preservers. No, they didn't. They died.
Yeah.
They're in space.
I almost played a song on YouTube there for a second. I don't know what I just hit.
So, yeah, it's one of those two.
Okay. Mine's going to be either Voltron, although I was a big Thundercats fan.
Thundercats.
And then G.I. Joe. I don't know which one I like more. Maybe G.I. Joe.
Now, Lion-O is, so Thundercats is Lion-O, right?
Yeah.
So I interviewed Brian Kenny, I believe is his name, who was the voice of Lion-O. And he's also the voice of Count Chocula. And he's also the Skittles Catch the Rainbow.
That's cool.
I didn't ask him anything about Thundercats because I did not watch it as a kid. I was a little too old for Thundercats.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mature state, I was still not old. I was a little too old to watch Thundercats. But the Cuckoo Bird. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah.
Those are his things. I spent 20 minutes talking about Cuckoo Bird.
Oh, that's crazy.
And he's like, aren't you going to ask me about Lion-O? No, we'll get to that. So tell me a little bit more about Count Chocula.
Did you get free cereal? Like, let's get.
What's your favorite cartoon?
I don't know. It's weird because like I break down my favorites. Like they're very distinct. I mean, you talked about like kind of like following a band or like a genre for like 4 or 5 years, whatever. And like mine are almost like in like single year increments, and cartoons kind of follow that same thing. So like I could go all the way back to like my earliest favorite cartoons is probably like Wile E. Coyote and like Tom and Jerry and stuff, and then then it probably progressed to like He-Man or
that was another good one, man.
He-Man was good stuff.
And then after that, I kind of stopped watch, or maybe Fraggle Rock after that, which kind of is more, puppet, but it was kind of a daily thing. And then it was all like the Saturday morning cartoons used to be on USA, so the Grape Ape and all the Hanna-Barbera stuff that they would play in the morning.
Good stuff.
So like,
Beagly,
because I kind of stopped watching them after school, but like I would devote my Saturday mornings to that. So like, I don't have a like all-time like, kind of can recite every episode. I guess probably He-Man probably be the closest one. I kind of watched that the longest, but I don't have one that stands out where it's like, no, this is it. Like I like them all that, for whatever year or 2 years I was watching them.
I think we were at a pinnacle for that time that we were young. Like we had the coolest shit between Star Wars, the He-Man, those cartoons. I think we had the best of the best. And, considering you could get up on a Saturday morning, grab my bowl of Fruity Pebbles, go sit in front of that TV, and I would destroy that box.
Yeah.
And just be like staring at the TV and for hours. What was it, like 8 o'clock till like 12 or something like that?
And then it would bust into Kung Fu Theater.
Yeah. It was just,
your entire Saturday was gone. Like,
Yep.
For me, it was the
beautiful.
cartoons. And do you remember how you would, when the new cartoons would start and you'd see in the comics or whatever the ads, and you're like, all right, 11:30, I got to go to NBC to watch this one. And then the Smurfs are on here, so I got to go over here and watch it.
Oh, the Smurfs.
You had it all set up.
Love that
But
one.
they all ended by like 11:30, and I remember Soul Train was on.
Oh, yeah.
And I am a huge
I
Soul
am
Train
too.
guy because
I
I
am
love all that old funk and soul.
Yep.
So I used to watch that. And then when American Bandstand, like if they had good people, I'd stick around and watch that one. So yeah, by 1 o'clock, I'd be out the door. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock on a Saturday.
I got to tell you who I love discovering music, and it's weird. Like, so sometimes I'll find somebody and I'll be like, oh, where'd this guy come? And he's been out for years. I don't make excuses for that. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Because I love podcasts so much. Podcasts take up a majority of my time when I'm driving. So I can refine my skills and, it's my hot button for the next 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it is. I'll find this guy in a second. I don't remember what his name was. But I started listening to this guy, and he has a little bit of funk, a little bit of blues. Like, I mean, it's crazy. And his voice just seems so, it's No, this is it. It's called Marcus King. If you get a chance to look at him on,
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. It's kind of like he's even got some like a little bluegrass twang.
Yeah.
He's a young guy.
Yeah.
I think he's like early 20s. Real soulful, right? Like
nice man beard.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He actually no, he's not. Yeah, he was on Gunna tour before everything got canceled last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Last year just killed everything.
Oh, terrible.
So what's the third question?
And then the third one is Star Wars or Star Trek.
Okay.
So my sister was a Star Trek fan, hated Star Trek, still don't like it. I like the new movies, but Star Wars is my life.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's everything.
Yeah. People, especially now, like I tell people, when you're gonna next Star Wars is come out, you're gonna watch it, like watch that. It's like I can remember my fondest memories. I was young when I saw Star Wars for the first time. When did that come out?
1977.
Okay.
I was in fourth grade. So when George Lucas said we need to put it out when Matt is that, I mean, I was the perfect age.
Yeah.
And just grew with it.
Yeah. First one I saw in the theaters was Empire.
The greatest movie of all time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I specifically saw that at the Hoyok Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what.
Oh, that was great. I just love going to movies there.
And I guess there's probably an off chance I could have saw, New Hope, but I don't think so.
They re-released it so many times in the theater. You probably could have.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I saw it when it was just Star Wars.
Like I specifically remember being at the theater for Empire, because I think what else came out at the same time? I think Dark Crystal came out at the same time.
I was actually going to bring that up in a few minutes.
My brothers were pissed because they wanted to see Empire, and I wanted to see Dark Crystal. So like we ended up going to see Dark Crystal, but then we went back like a couple of days later, and they got to see Empire. So
yeah, the special effects for Star Wars back then was off the hook.
Mind-boggling.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they did half of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, and even now, like you go back and after watching all the CGI that you get, the pleasure of looking at now, because I'm a big CGI fan.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, oh, it ruined the movie. I don't know, but I mean, it does sometimes. I just look to see how far we can push it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing these new movies that are coming out with their, like, even the characters are computer generated, and you have to take like a second to go, wait a minute, is that person real or not? And then because all those new deep fakes that are out now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy in TikTok that does something with Tom Cruise's face, and it's a deep fake. And I'll tell you what, there's certain times where he moves, you can tell.
Yeah. Oh
but
no.
Other times you're like,
Yeah.
who's going to abuse this privilege going
Oh,
forward?
everybody. Yeah. No. That's a very dangerous thing. It really is.
Yeah.
Where basically everything's going to have some sort of authentication procedure.
Sure.
It really will. But yeah, that's a whole nother.
I mean, you can see my favorite Star Wars character, Boba Fett, hands down.
Yep.
Although I did not watch the second season of Mandalorian.
Is it on yet? Oh no,
Yeah,
second season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
second
yeah,
season.
Oh,
Yeah.
You were gonna love it.
I know, and
You're gonna love it.
So let it be known, I am very cheap sometimes, and it's weird, like because I will be very impulsive with things that make no sense, but like Star Wars, which I just can't get enough of. I had Verizon, and that free trial on Apple TV. So when it finally got expired, I'm like, I don't want to pay $6.99 anymore.
So it's funny because you like Star Wars so much that you were talking about buying the Stormtrooper.
Yeah, but I'll pay $600 for a Stormtrooper. Yeah,
But $6 a month. Oh no, forget about it.
That does not make sense, man.
I'm only cheap when it comes to food.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yep. I will there's no such thing to me as like a great piece of steak. Just give me a freaking hamburger.
Yeah.
That's all I want. The best meal. If I was going to the electric chair tonight, and if anybody's watching the show and going to the electric chair, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be politically correct as I can. I don't
think we have to worry about
them.
them.
Don't mean to offend. But my last meal is going to be the meatloaf, mac and cheese, and mashed potatoes from Boston Market.
Oh, that's a good call, man.
I would go for a cheeseburger. I would be like, I'd want a nice cheeseburger. Probably, like a Kobe or Wagyu beef, and I'd have some choosings for
I want
toppings.
that sucker stamped with the golden arches on it.
Yeah.
But I have an expense account for meals. It's so bad. They're like, really? Yeah.
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 We were talking about Boston Market on one of the podcasts one time. I remember the day it opened, and I was up in Avon, Connecticut.
Well, it was Boston Chicken.
Boston Chicken,
back
yeah,
then,
yeah. So I was opening the store at the same time they were opening up. So I got to see the progress. And of course they open these things fairly quickly. And it was right around when my store opened. It opened. So one of my managers went over there and brought back a whole bunch of meals for everybody. And I was like, is this for real? Like, because there wasn't anything around that really to touch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fixings, man, the sides were just like.
Oh, the mac and cheese is the greatest thing you'll ever eat.
Mac and cheeses, the stuffing.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's what started my downhill spiral for weight gain was pasta.
Like even the sides that like you wouldn't think you would like corn at a like a fast food place. Like corn's not bad. You know, I mean, it's not the best, but
don't they have like a spinach and marshmallow or some sort of thing like that?
Oh yeah, and like with the squash or what's the orange stuff? Sweet potatoes.
Yeah. Sweet potatoes with the little marshmallows inside.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like marshmallows. I love marshmallows. I don't like
any of that stuff.
You put a marshmallow in there, I might try it.
I used to get the
like
quarter
Nutella,
dark,
like asparagus. No, with Nutella. Oh yeah, put that on.
Bring it on. I used to get the quarter dark manager special. So you got the 2 legs, mashed potatoes, and the corn. And I feel like I got a third option. There might have been different levels. Because I always went big.
You get the cornbread. You always get the cornbread.
Cornbread, and it's so wet and moist.
It's the only good cornbread ever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, people down south, actually, no, I can't lie. I've had some pretty good cornbread down south. But it's the fast food sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, that just takes it over the top.
Well, it's
we
funny.
call that magic.
Yeah.
I talked to a couple of guys that own, so I play with a guy on Xbox that owns, he used to own a barbecue company. He still does. But he was telling me that he has now transitioned into the grilled cheese arena. So anything that you can imagine on a grilled cheese, he's going to make. Shout out to Brian. Or we know him as Mac Bolin on Xbox.
I got to plug a friend.
Yeah, go ahead.
Say Cheese Food Trailer, if you haven't had it. A good friend of mine, Terry Goulet. She'll actually be at Iron Duke Brewery, I think this Wednesday, which this is going to air after that. But absolutely the best grilled cheese you will ever have, like on fresh baked sourdough bread. And she's got we got
to get her on the podcast.
Like 8 or 9 different kinds of grilled cheese, and there's always a special. Like she has one, it's like the loaded grilled cheese. So it's like mashed potatoes with like bacon and green onions and and then there's one with my favorite one is pickles and bacon with cheddar. But anyway,
my heart just stopped for a second.
Yeah, no, I'll share a link with you because absolutely fantastic.
Can you get her on the podcast? You think?
Yeah, she lives. She lives out east a little bit, but we're obviously out east from where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
that'd
talk
be
to
awesome.
her.
Talk about food all day. Jesus, that would be a home run.
Oh man,
so I love how you put it. That would be your prison, your death row.
That'd be
meal.
it. That'd be it. Can I get more gravy?
Yeah, actually, I would request now one of her grilled cheese, and I'll say that would be my request.
Yeah.
Then that's not McDonald's.
Or you know what? And if it's not even cooked, just hold it while you're in the chair, and it might cook it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just bury me with it. Can you just when I'm cremated, can I just kind of
slather me and
put it in my pockets?
Well, so me and Brian were talking, and he said one thing I've never done is skimped on my ingredients. I don't care how bad things got, because that's what does you in.
Yep.
You have a lot of people will be okay with a bad meal here and there, but if it's consistently bad, you lost them forever. And a lot of times they don't come back. And I won't say the name of the barbecue place that me and Cheryl went, but she's been telling me about this place for a long time. I finally got some time off, and I took her out there for for lunch. And not only did we have to wait a long time, which I thought was kind of weird for barbecue, that's usually pretty readily available, especially at the time that we went. And we got it. I'm like, this is it, man. Like, I almost felt like there was no more love in that. And I know, and I fought with it because I'm like, listen, we're just coming out of COVID. Things are tough. I get it, and I tried to give him like the extra 3 stars for the COVID deal, but then I ate it. And I'm just like, you just didn't give a shit when you made this, and I'm a big barbecue fan. Not that I'm an expert.
Yeah.
But good barbecue when you have it.
But yeah, well, barbecue's barbecue. So there's some like very distinct things that happens. Obviously, it all starts in your morning.
Yeah.
Because it's all smoked or slow cooked, and so there's what you put into it there, and then how you attend to it. And if you, especially when you talk about portions and stuff like that, like you can't skimp. So if people expect a certain thing, like it's just, you're sold out, like and you should be happy because you sold what you every bit you cooked, but you know that tomorrow you need to start with more.
Yep.
Right.
So you can't skimp on portions either. Like if you have that standard and you just take it through from prep or initiation, I mean, none of that should change unless he kind of lost his touch. Maybe he was out of practice, Well,
he could have been. So I'm going to give him one more shot because I always believe in going back again. And I'll give him some time, But we both looked at each other like, I was so looking forward to this.
So was it taste or portion or both?
I fight with portion sometimes because I understand what it takes to make a profit in that business. So portion sometimes I'm like, all right, I can get over portion as long as I can feel love in your food because I get it.
Yep.
There was, to tell you the truth, I don't even remember if the portions were even a thing, but it was just the taste. Like the minute, although I will give him 100% credit, his catfish, outstanding. Yeah. Outstanding. Ugh. The breading,
seafood.
Oh, you're not a big seafood fan, huh? Ugh. Oh, I could eat seafood all day long.
I don't gravitate to it, but I don't feel that way about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I do.
So when you were
cooking it in the house, I'm like,
when you were growing up, did your parents open you up to a lot of different kind of foods, or was it very streamlined?
I had sinus issues my entire life, so my sense of taste has always been screwy. So I don't eat fruit, I don't eat vegetables, and a lot of the reason is, like, I just started eating lettuce. Literally just started eating lettuce like a year ago. If you put a banana in my mouth and I'm chewing it, it's mushy, it's stringy, and it makes me gag because I can't taste anything. So it's like that with everything. Like, I don't eat steak because you got to chew it too much, and that will make me gag. And then you might get that glob of fat in there, a little something in there. So I want basically food that's already been pre-chewed. I need to be baby birded.
Yeah.
So a cheeseburger, I just got to chew and swallow it.
Right.
Seafood, the smell gets me. Like, I don't smell a whole lot of stuff either because of the sinus issues, but I smell seafood.
Yeah.
And when you look at it and it's like, that looks, I'm not going to say what I think it looks like because there's people going, I'm eating that right now.
Right.
There's nothing appetizing, and it's hard to live in this area and not like that.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Because this is the seafood capital of the world pretty much. And, going to Boston, I've been having to go to Boston for work. For the first time in my life, I've usually work in Connecticut down that way. Now I'm going east. So I've been in the Boston area every day, twice a week for the last 3 months. And you get out there and you smell it. Like, everything smells like seafood. And it's like,
it's cooking everywhere. Yeah.
And it's like, you guys have a food truck? Oh my gosh, it's got a swordfish on it. It's like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Catfish Joe or Lobster Larry's here. Ugh. And when you go out there and you're like, oh, they do. Like, I didn't know they really use tuna boats. I thought that was like this romantic image of how they caught them. No, they got, like, you go out to like Gloucester and you just see rows of fishing boats.
Yeah.
Or you see the empty because they're all out risking their lives because apparently it's very dangerous work. But
it's crazy. You watch some of these shows that they have on like National Geographic and stuff, and I'm like, people actually go do that stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess it's a lot of those guys come from generations of that.
Yeah.
So it's in their blood, and I get it, but I don't know if that's something I would be like, hey, that sounds like a great career.
I never met my father who was a fisherman, and he never met his father who was a fisherman.
Yeah.
Me and my boy are out here doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, if it's gonna die.
If it was my only option and that's what I had to do, I would be down for that.
What was that movie with it was in Gloucester about
Perfect
the big
Storm?
Oh yeah. It only takes you watching that once to be like, that's not a career for me.
Yeah. No, but that's what I had to do to pay rent. I'd be doing it, but I definitely every time I got off the boat, like I'm filling out job applications all weekend.
Yeah, because these guys are out there sometimes for a long time.
Yeah. Like you're out there until you're out of fuel, or you catch something.
Yeah,
and that's it. And sometimes you catch something, and then you got to wait to have someone bring you fuel out.
Right,
because you got to bring your catch back. Like that's what you do.
Yeah,
and that's because. If as soon as you get back, you don't have any money,
Right.
That's not the life for me.
No, not at all. So let's get into aliens.
Yes.
You okay with that?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so all this stuff that's come out now in a very small amount of time.
It's been interesting.
Talk to me.
So the first thing I heard was it former President Obama made some comment.
Yep.
And the comment was basically, I cannot deny or say it's true. However, I was told, all this cryptic stuff was coming through. Is that what you were talking about? All this
that sounded like every political speech ever. But
and there's also some Pentagon official that was supposed to come out and say something. I mean, I was hearing that stuff.
So June 1st, they were supposed to come out with everything that they had, and they still haven't really come out with anything.
Everything?
Yeah, they were supposed to come out with the whole kit.
Because I know there's been the bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the stuff is people sneaked out first, so now they're addressing that. So one of the most fascinating interviews I've heard so far is Captain Fravor. He was a pilot in the Navy, and so they were flying some sorties somewhere. No ammunition on board whatsoever, right? So they were just doing their little mock things, and all of a sudden they get a command to go look at something wherever it was. So as he flies over, he sees the water churning underneath, and if there's a few people that I will always believe is, first of all, pilots.
Yep.
Those guys are very mandated truth tellers because, especially if something goes wrong, they're very by the book. They're very manual driven.
And everything's to the nth of a second.
Exactly. So he automatically saw that something was not right under that water, and he could not really identify what that was. Then so he noticed that there was a tic-tac shaped object right above the water that all of a sudden takes a vertical fly up. I want to say it was to 80,000 feet or something. And he starts to go after it. And then it dropped back down to 1 foot above sea level. Now, what the interesting thing was, as he's chasing this thing, he has someone in the back that sees the same object, right? So now we have two people. And I'm fascinated when you have mechanical or computer-driven machines that will also pick that up. So next thing you know, his flare system picks it up and starts tracking it. So now we have speed.
Yep.
We have direction. We have all these other things now that can, when you're looking at it from a scientific standpoint, these things now make more sense that is actually something we're seeing and there's something tangible there. So this thing has no visible thrust, no visible output. It's changing directions that would literally just crush a human being if it was in these environments. So that was huge for me.
Yep.
You can watch him on Joe Rogan. You can watch him on another podcast that he does that he was on. Absolutely amazing. But the new killer one that I just saw was some warship. These things were swarming the warship, and you can go right on YouTube and you can see it. CNN had it on there.
Was it the one in China or?
No, it was one of our guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so you see it, and what's pretty cool is you're seeing it live time, or not live time, but you get to see it as you're looking at it, and you see one little blimp. Now, the thing is, our radars now are pretty sophisticated, and next out of nowhere, now you start seeing boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and they're all flying in formation, and they're swarming this warship.
And it's like they had no clue what was happening.
And they said that, oh, here's another thing. When Captain Favor was flying, it was actively jamming his radar, which technically, if another country did that to us, that'd be an act of war.
Yeah,
right.
Yep.
Right? So this thing was doing all sorts of things that were just defying. But, Joe Rogan brought up a good point the other day. He doesn't think that there's any aliens actually in these things. He thinks they're probes. And I'm thinking about that. I'm like, that's brilliant that you think that way, because what are we doing now?
We're sending up probes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're crude.
If you have the technology to get to, a portion of the galaxy, let's assume it's obviously beyond the solar system, at least within this galaxy, to get here within the amount of time it would require to get here, because we're just barely making it to Mars right now, right? You would obviously have the technology to get here automated, or remotely. Yeah. So I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that.
That's okay. It's scary. First of all, as much as, here, I don't know about you, but the reality of I've always wanted them to be real to now that there is a really good possibility they're real.
Yeah.
And now I'm scared.
Yeah. The when they were making the announcements, I think somebody was going to talk to Congress. Was that the June 1st thing?
Yeah. Well,
so somebody was going to talk to Congress or whatever. Like there was this huge announcement that was coming. And in my head, because I have a marketing degree, I'm always thinking something is a marketing thing. Like this guy's going to go to Congress and say like, there are aliens among us. And you'll find out more on Netflix starting in September. That's honestly what I was thinking. It was going to be something like that.
Oh, yeah. But everything always has an agenda. Whether,
exactly like you're saying. It's like since I've been 5 years old, I'm like, I want these aliens to be real. And now that you're starting to realize they could be, I don't want them. I'm terrified. And, when you're talking about the like on Mars, that Mars rover thing could be driving through somebody's backyard. Ma, son just went through the fence. What are you going to do? You're having a picnic and all of a sudden that thing goes riding through. So it would make sense that these are probes out here to check it. I would also love to think like, are these probes from our future coming back to our past?
Well, that's
to
another
see what's going on. And,
yeah. So obviously there's a very distinct possibility.
And it's checking
there.
the water because the water is all bad in the future. So it's coming back here to see this was the date like it all went bad.
Or can they bring the water back?
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Like can water travel through time?
Yeah, that worst Star Trek movie, the one when they brought the whales back.
Right,
yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, there'd be whales, Admiral.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's definitely one that should have never been made.
Oh.
It's so fascinating. What if it is, they talk about all these different dimensions and how those things work. And, listen, I'm okay with a lot of stuff. And the more I think about it, the more it keeps me up at night. But it's, who knows? Is it because that we're at a point where things are ready to pop off in this world? We have all this tension with all these different nations, nuclear stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And these things seem to come around when there's a lot of tension, more so now, though. I wonder if they've been monitoring. This is the point where they're going to step in and go, all right, guys, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because what a way to unite everybody if the enemy is my friend. Yep. You know what I mean? What do you think the odds are that they would come and vaporize us like the day the Earth stood still? I mean, you could go one of two ways. You could either say, hopefully they're not going to be human and they're going to show up and be kind, because we would show up somewhere and just start messing stuff up. Yeah. Because that's what humans do. Right.
So I'm hoping that these guys and gals or whatever they are a little better, but they've also had time to travel.
Right.
And they've had time to monitor what we're doing. And they must be like, yeah, we're not going there. Do you see what they're doing? This is garbage. Yeah. Did you see The Bachelorette? I'm not going there.
Yeah, I mean, man, I keep losing my train of thought. I don't know what's going on tonight.
That's not like you today.
I know. I'm
is
off.
Is it going to be like me? We're going to go throw up in the other room.
Too much wine. But I mean, get back to the fact that they, the technology that it would take just to get here. I mean, this is not just happening overnight. What this is it's a mix of, our advance in technology to be able to kind of record more of these things real time and get them broadcast out before they can get squashed. And if you look back to how far reports of, UFOs, go back, there's, it's immense. It goes back very, at least 100 years, and that's just in modern reporting. Never mind drawings and type and things like that, and it's almost unanimous. But now, but officials have always denied it. So this is where the whole conspiracy part of the aliens comes in, and now it's just you can't deny it. There's several different sources from different angles, and they're documented and proven as legitimate video, because we talked about video manipulation earlier. It's just becoming less disputable and more widespread. So if we look at it that way, if the bad things were going to happen, I'd like to think that they probably would have already acted. Now we might just be the new reality show for them.
Well, it's funny. I knew a guy that worked for NASA, and he was one of the guys that was in charge of one of the probes to Mars. And I asked him one day, I said, what do you think about aliens? He's like, he goes, I've never seen anything. He goes, but being in this business, we hear shit all the time. Imagine. And he goes, but I will tell you this. I'm very aware of the satellites that they have in space and what they can do and what they can monitor. He goes, I'm telling you right now, if something's coming to our atmosphere, not only do we know about it, we got an HD picture of it coming in. So he goes, just be known to that.
There's still a very big gap between what's disclosed and what's available.
And so I was watching an article or watching a video the other day about an interview they had with a pilot, and he said that they have more pictures that he knows of that have been taken from other pilots that he knows firsthand from that have never been leaked yet. That he said that will blow your mind. Like all this stuff that's coming out now, he goes, those pictures aren't even on that level. It's way higher.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like,
that's
let's
what I'm saying.
go.
Like, that's what I'm saying. This isn't a new thing. If it was a threat, it would have been a threat a long time ago, and it would have been before we even knew it. Like before the public knew that it was a threat.
Yeah, and he was saying on the interview, he goes, based on what I've seen myself, we wouldn't stand a chance against these things because even chasing them doesn't do anything. Never mind what their capabilities are. But these things, they don't seem to want to hurt us in a way. They test things.
Yep.
Like there's interviews out there where people in the military said that these things have been over nuclear power or nuclear missile silos and shut them down. So they have these capabilities to really just at a snap of a finger. So, what does that look like in time? Like if you look at us like where we are now in 2021, what does that look like for them? Are we talking, a billion years more than us? What kind of technology would a billion years give you?
Yeah. So from an evolution standpoint, how much further are they ahead than us? Yeah. I mean,
look at the jumps we've made from the 90s to now with technology, and imagine them doing it, but better, bigger. And they're starting. I mean, we're going to assume they're smarter than us. We're not, they've been at this a lot longer than we have because they're already here. So yeah, it's funny because you're going to pick your favorite sci-fi movie and that's the alien that's coming.
Right.
It's like everybody remembers Independence Day. That's what they're expecting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping for the ET guy, a little brown dude that's going to not want to kill me. Or Close Encounters. I mean, one of the greatest movies of all time.
Oh, so they were coming out with a new remake last year. They were going to digitally remaster that, and it was supposed to come out in September, but I don't think it ever did.
No.
It was supposed to be only in theaters for a short amount of time. Yep. I was like, let's go. I was ready for it.
Oh, I love that movie.
And it never came out. One of my all-time favorite movies.
I was 10 when it came out, and I think my dad...
Close Encounters?
Yeah, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I saw it during the daylight. And then as soon as it got dark, I'm in my parents' bed crying. I can't go to bed. I can't go to bed.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie. You want to talk about a movie that probably expanded my little mind more than anything? It was that one.
Yeah.
Because you had to actually do some thinking. And there's a lot of things in there that like I think about that movie every day. There's something
I'll have to rewatch it. I know I saw it because I was what was it, mid 80s it came out?
1978.
Okay.
It's a long movie.
I saw it.
It's one of the longer ones.
I saw it in the early 80s because my uncle absolutely loved it. I remember that specifically. So I know he made me watch it because I was into sci-fi and everything in those, indefinitely. But I don't remember. It's not distinct to me. So I think I've only seen it once or twice.
And it's a movie that goes from comedy at the beginning. There's some great funny moments in there.
Yep.
To all of a sudden when little Barry goes missing, when the aliens came and took him, to becoming god-awful terrifying.
Yep.
To scratching your head when the government is like killing animals and livestock to it's a gas leak. We'll just say it's a gas leak. To the hope at the end of it.
Yeah.
And even the hopeful moment when you're like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And that big long-armed alien comes out and you're like, I don't want that one. I like the little big head bulbous guys. Yeah. I don't like that big armed one. That scene still terrifies me.
Does it really? Yeah.
Yep. And when the screws start coming out of the vent plate on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he opens the door and it's just red.
Yeah.
I'll still reference or mention when there's a storm coming, I'll be like, it's Close Encounters, Sky. You need to close the windows.
We'll have to have a watch party one day and watch that.
I'll be down for it.
We'll have a cookout.
Yeah.
I'll seriously. We'll do it here. And too bad I didn't have my home theater anymore because that would have been perfect.
Still got the projector?
No, I gave it to my buddy Kenny. We bartered a couple things. So I'm the kind of person where if I'm going to upgrade and I know that you are going to be into something, I just give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then I hope that you just pass it on to somebody else, and so help people out. I'm going to do that one day. I think I might actually.
I got a projector that I use for putting movies in the back of my house.
Yeah,
so,
we could do that right out.
We could do it out back here.
Yeah.
So
I just need if you use a laptop, I have HDMI.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So
you can do it right through there.
Nice.
One of the things that we're planning to do during the summer, so I live on a lake, and we want to show Jaws at like 9 o'clock at night.
Don't do that.
And have everybody go in the lake and watch it in tubes.
Yeah,
they did that out at the Oxbow in Northampton a couple years ago.
So I'll just let you know now, I will not do that.
Yeah.
That is one of my fears is sharks. I'm definitely afraid. I could be in a freshwater pond and like I remember when I was a kid, I used to go up to Otis all the time with Chris Bordeaux. His dad had a campground up there, and we used to go out on the boat. And I swear to God, every time I went out, today's the day I'm going to die by a shark. But there's no sharks out there.
It's a reservoir.
I mean? But I had it in my mind.
We still have we talk about those things like that terrified us as kids. Jaws did not terrify me. What terrified me was watching Thunderball, the James Bond movie. If you remember, there was a fight by the pool, and Bond and a bad guy went into the water, and the sharks were living in there, but they weren't in there yet. And then Largo closed it, and a metal grate came over the pool. I go swimming somewhere. It's awful because my wife cracks up. We'll go to like a hotel, and I'll go to the pool, and the first thing I do is put my hand
Look
to
for
make
the metal
sure there's
grate.
no metal grate that's going to come out. So it's like, man, we got screwed up by things. We shouldn't have been watching these movies.
Yeah.
That was one that really stuck with me. But Close Encounters, oh my gosh. And Jaws, I didn't see Jaws till a little bit later. I didn't see it because that was 75.
That was 75, yeah.
So I was way too young to go see it. And I finally saw it when it was on TV. So I saw the TV version.
Yep.
And then when we got cable and finally saw it, it's like, this is pretty bloody. But my fear of the ocean came out of sharks with the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. I don't know if you know that story.
And that story comes from Jaws. Well, it doesn't come from Jaws, but it's talked about in Jaws.
Does it really? Yeah.
Quint talks about this.
Yeah, their little storytelling about the scars and stuff.
So towards the end of World War II, I was reading history books that I probably shouldn't have been reading first, second, and third grade. Like everybody's taking out books at the library. I'm going to the history section and grabbing history books. But I read the story about this boat, the Indianapolis. It was on a secret mission because it had atomic bomb parts on it, and they couldn't manifest it. They couldn't say anything. It went out at night, got sunk by a Japanese sub. So there was no record it was even out. So the crew is out there floating around, the 100 or so people that might have survived the initial sinking. And as the days go in, they were like out there for like 3 weeks to a month, maybe. Sharks would just come up and pick one or two off a day. And they did it at the same time every day. So you had this fear of, oh my gosh, somebody's going to die today. And the sharks knew enough not to wipe them all out because that was their food supply. But the thing that didn't set well with me, that was a little freaky. But the thing that terrified me the most was when everybody started to go a little insane because of the heat, no food, no water. A guy said, look, if I swim straight down where the boat sank, I can get into the kitchen, grab some food, and bring it up. That visual in my head of like the boat being here, like say that's the water line. I hate the ocean. I hate the ocean. I was on a cruise, miserable the whole time. They might have had dogs on it.
Really?
It was awful. Yeah, so I have a horrible fear of the ocean because of that story.
Wow.
And the sharks were like the littlest part of it.
Well, you know what it is? It's the memory. It's the imprint that it puts on your brain at that particular time, where all of a sudden it's that little switch that goes off. You're like, oh, okay, that's my thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Like spiders and snakes for me. That's
yeah.
We've had a real big problem with spiders in this house all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on.
It's been pretty damp, and they like damp conditions, for the most part.
They just want to be on the show.
Well, the other day we did a podcast. you and I a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize when I went to go upstairs to kick my shoes off, I had a big brown spider. I don't know what it was, but it looked like it had 50 million teeth, and they were all razor sharp. And I mean, it was about this, about this big.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm good. No.
It's fine. I don't have any of those things like dogs, cats, bugs. Kind of just, I don't know.
Well, it's funny. A couple weeks ago, we did a podcast, and Brett's sitting over there, and all of a sudden, I got this little pain right here in my forehead, and I'm like, oh, I felt weird, and I had my body hates me, so I can't drink, right? And I only had a shot glass of Jack Daniels with some Coke. But I mean, it was like this much Coke, little shot glass, and I don't think it was even a full shot glass.
Yeah, no, it wasn't much.
So I don't know. It was probably like half an hour left, and I'm getting to a point where I can't keep it together anymore. And I'm looking at him like, and I'm hoping he's getting the point, like, is something wrong? And I finally just said, guys, we gotta shut this down. And thank God he helped me that day, because he helped everybody out of the house, and I'm over on the other side just vomiting.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't believe in the sink. And I'm just like, what did I think I had something. I think we had some pork chops that I left in the fridge for too long before I cooked them. I think that was it. But boy, man, I went to bed, and my wife's like, we got up in the morning. She's like, I was scared for you last night, because you never do that.
Yeah, he was looking at me like I could tell he was like trying to tell me something. I could think he's like, all right, he either wants to like change the direction of the conversation, or wants to call it quits. And so I kind of was just like, I tried to kind of just corral everything back in, and then that's when you're like, yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, and then I got to a point where I'm like,
and then right after that, you were
I was
excuse me, I'll be back.
I'm if somebody you get the people that, if you throw up, I'm going to throw up and all that. If somebody throws up, I will laugh my face off.
Oh, really?
I will laugh. I just find it hysterical. Even when I'm throwing up and I'm very loud, I'm projectile.
Yeah.
I'll throw up and I'll be screaming to anybody in the house, oh my God, did you hear that? Oh, did you hear that one? That was crazy. Oh, yeah. I'm spraying all over the place. Oh, I find it hysterical.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't laugh at somebody when they're throwing up. So just telling you that now. If you throw up in front of me and I laugh, it is nothing personal.
That's okay.
It's a huge sign of respect from where I come from.
It's like burping after a meal.
It's like when someone takes a shitter down the stairs, you laugh for a second, then you're like, oh my God, are you okay?
Yeah, are you okay?
I didn't mean to laugh, but that shit was funny.
It's tough working in safety when somebody falls and the first thing you want to do as a guy is go, oh, I didn't even see you fall. Because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
We still have pride.
Yep.
I'll never forget the day I was walking into Cumberland Farms when I worked at my old job. And I'm looking down at my computer before I go in. Brand new pair of glasses. Brand spanking new pair of glasses. Bing! I hit a sign. The handicap sign.
Yep.
Right smack dab in my face. I mean, it couldn't have been more square to my head. And of course, it knocks my feet right out from underneath me. Right? I'm on my back. My computer goes flying, and I get up like, did anybody see me? I'm like trying to get up real quick, and then I realized my glasses were in half behind me, and I'm like, it went from like bad to now I got to pay another $400 for glasses, But thank God when I went to go, I handed them in to the eyeglass place. She's like, oh, it's covered. She goes, you're covered for a whole year. It doesn't matter what happens.
Did you get $12 insurance or whatever? Or?
I must have. I don't even remember.
Yeah, it's like a year or two. They do like, and it's a deal. Like for what glasses cost these days, it's like super cheap. And I'm not like an extended warranty guy. Yeah, it's worth it.
I fight with extended warranties all the time, man. I'm always like, listen, if it's new, it shouldn't break.
They sent me to Mexico. The extended warranty sent me to like Mexico 3 or 4 times. So that just tells you how much money extended warranties make.
Really?
Yeah, like I've won contests for selling them.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I've been like all inclusive for like a week, me and my wife.
Yep.
So I know they make money. That's why I'm wicked hesitant. But on the glasses, on a percentage basis, and knowing like what people do to their glasses, after you own a few pair, how bad everybody is with glasses. Like it's like $17 or something.
Yeah.
Like
in COVID last year, it was just so bad. So I've had contacts, and I used to wear contacts all the time, but then I can't see up close anymore. So then I put the cheaters on, right? So Next thing I know, my daughter breaks her glasses. So I'm like, all right, we got to get glasses. I can't leave her without, they frown on that kind of shit when you don't give your kids what they need.
Shoes, food, glasses.
Yeah. I'm like, shut up and stay in your room. So we finally, I'm talking to some guy at work. He's like, listen, we got the best eye insurance like out there.
Yeah.
I'm like, we do? He goes, yeah. He goes, you get like a free pair of glasses every year. And he goes, no, we're not talking like cheap glasses. You can get high-end glasses.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay. So I get there and we do the exam and she's like, well, I have some bad news for you. And I'm like, oh, I got glaucoma or something? She goes, you're at that age where you need progressives.
Yep.
I go, do you mean transitions? She goes, oh, no, I mean progressives. She goes, we don't use those words anymore.
It's like bifocals.
Bifocals,
basically.
yeah. And so I think if I never should have done it because now my eyes are so used to doing it. It was weird for like a day or two, but now if I put my contacts in,
yep.
Oh man, I bought contacts for 2 years. Been wearing these for a year. You know what I mean? It's just easier to wear my glasses.
Yep.
Because my eyes just can't get used to the contacts now. That bottom vision, well, it's scary.
I know that's the one thing from COVID that I couldn't wear my glasses with the mask. And I can't wear contacts because I have astigmatism really bad.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So basically, they would probably end up here. I mean, that's what they told me. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. So I have to go. But my glasses that I've got, they're like trifocal.
Are they really?
Because I need something for reading. Like, this is good. I can do this. I can't do this. And 20 feet away, I can't see anything.
Wow.
So I had like these trifocals where it was like the progressive here. And then over here on the side and like right in the middle, if I looked, it was like zoom, super zoom.
Yeah.
So that was a little weird walking and getting used to those. But now I have to get another pair. COVID. Yeah.
Sucks getting old, man.
It does.
I mean, if this was a contract, I'd want to get out of it. You know what I mean? I'd do everything I could to break that contract.
I'm not buying
I didn't ask for
warranty
this.
on this.
Yeah, that's right. Is there a scheduled warranty?
Yeah,
for,
no, and it would have cost too much money, I'm sure.
No.
Too much margin on that one.
All right, guys, we are at our time limit. Go ahead and plug yourself one more time.
All right, so I should have done this the whole show. I don't know why I didn't.
Will it stand up? Oh yeah, it could have.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
What a rookie move.
All right, let's start over.
Terrible, yeah. So right now, if you want to go to Indiegogo.com, type in Black Sabbath, you'll be able to find the book. Jump on in, be a part of it. You get some cool stuff. You get the book, you get your name in it, all sorts of great stuff. Secret Identity, that's my old podcast. PowerChordspodcast.com, Striper.com. You can hit media, go to podcast, and hear the new shows. And then on all sorts of platforms, it's called the Monarch Comics Theater Podcast. So it's on everything.
Yep.
So that's where you find me.
I love your fascination for music. I love the fascination for comics and all that stuff combined. Your wealth of knowledge is absolutely insane.
And can you imagine, with all of that, I still was able to get a wife, have kids, and have somewhat of a normal career.
I'm impressed. I'm absolutely impressed.
Yep. I mean, throw the asthma in as a kid. And the hating fruits and vegetables. I was a pariah.
It's not like, you get a disease that you get 2% chance to live. You had a 2% chance to make all this happen, and here we are. Yep.
And wait till you get to sleep. I mean, that's going to be amazing.
Right.
All right, Brad, let him have it.
Yeah, as always, I will promote our family business, IQ Ink Screen Printing and Embroidery. We can print everything from 1 to 1,000 shirts, embroider anything. IQ-Ink.com, and of course, always promote my son's business, Blue Bee Apparel. Can be found on TikTok at Blue Bee Apparel, bluebeeapparel.com. Always donating 10% of his profits to the Honeybee Conservancy for saving the honeybees. And I think this will come after the collection closes, but the Be Proud collection will also benefit the Trevor Project, which is suicide awareness and prevention in the LGBTQ community. So he's donating an additional 10% of his profits to Trevor Project.
So before we go, I saw somebody with the Blue Bee Apparel in South Hadley at the sandwich shop at the
really.
What's it called? That sandwich place?
Tailgate Picnic.
Tailgate Picnic. Yeah. She had it, so we started talking about it, and I said, "Hey, I don't know the kid." But I said, "I know the kid that does this. I do a podcast with his dad."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I have a whole bunch of these."
Yeah, that's great.
That was pretty neat for the first time I saw somebody out there with it, and apparently she went to high school with him.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
he's got a lot of his business started at Friends and Family. But he became kind of a TikTok sensation. He's got over 20,000 followers on TikTok.
Wow.
And he sells internationally now. He ships to it's limited. People begged him for international shipping, but then once people saw what international shipping costs, but he branched out and he shipped to Portugal in parts of Europe, South America, Mexico, Canada for sure.
Wow.
I'm impressed.
Kids killing it.
Yeah,
kids killing it. So also for Pride Month, we are gonna plug my other buddy's book. So this is called "If You Give a Gay a Grinder." It's by Joe Amarino. He's a very dear friend of the podcast and very dear friend of mine. This is an amazing book, especially for the gay community. He's also working on a second book for the trans community. So anybody out there that's trans that wants to get a hold of me, and we can put you in touch with Joe to help him write his next book, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about this book, there's a podcast all about this book a few back.
Yep. If you look at, we have 2 podcasts. The first one with Joe, we were just talking about creating the book. The second podcast was actually the kickoff of the book. And this is a great book. He put a lot of hard work into this, just like you put into your book. I'm very fascinated that you guys can do something like that. I don't know if I would have the brains to do something like that, but again, if you give a gay a grinder, you can find this on Amazon or reallygaybooks.com. So let's give our friend Joe some support too.
And again, to
yep.
Well, this is helping people with their lives.
Sure.
That's it. Like when you're talking about these projects, this was not anything 20 years ago. This was still the community in the closet.
Right.
And look at all the amazing stuff that's coming out right now. And it's nice. It's so nice and supportive to see that. It sucks that it took this long, but that is great. That is great.
One of the things that kind of gives me purpose, when my dad died, it was tough to lose him. But what I gained was, the fact that he's like, what do you want to do with your, what do you want to do? And I said, I love helping people. Part of my job that I go to every day is helping people be better at what they do. So having this podcast has really helped me. One of the great things that last time I had you on was halfway through the podcast, you had this look on you and I'm like, what? And you're like, I just thought about my book and what I can do to finish my book.
My science fiction book, yep.
So that was awesome. I was on cloud 9 knowing that this was your muse to make it happen. So that's what gives me enjoyment, that this podcast, we can reach out to a bunch of different people to have them come on and really talk about what makes them tick and the things that are important to them and help uplift them. Yeah. It's what it's all about at the end of the day. I mean, I remember when I started, I was freaking out a little bit and you're like, come over here. I'll show you exactly what you need to do and some tricks of the trade and all that kind of stuff. And so that helped me out tremendously. And that kind of gave me the boost. And then I met my friend Mike that you met that day from Locals Only podcast. And, it's amazing when you start something, the people that come out and help. Brett joined the podcast after Matt was having to be at work. So, but it was one time he came on the podcast, and then I said, "Hey, you want to come back and do it again?" Matt's not going to be here next week. Yeah, and it's just the progression happens. So now
he put out a thing saying, I need guests, and he put out a little frustration about people canceling, and so I'm like, I'll be here this day, and I showed up and I had a great time. I'm like, you know what, anytime you need me here, barring anything unforeseen, because I just wanted to, support what he's got going on, and I have a great time. It's great. I'm thankful for being here. So
we talked about the whole thing about the whole fear, like when you first come on and you're like, oh my God, I got to talk for 2 hours. No, you don't. And then you have to talk for 2 hours, and then you're going to turn around and go, that was 2 hours. It felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we're almost at 2 hours right now. I mean, that it goes by so fast. Yeah. It's insane.
And we were about to quit 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. That's
why dogs are upstairs ripping the house apart.
Well, that's why I've learned. So, I'm really starting to dive into the the YouTube algorithms and all that kind of stuff, and because it'll show you where your sweet spot is and where people stop watching and all that kind of stuff. And so about the hour and a half mark, you know, I'm not a Joe Rogan right now, so no one's gonna watch it for 3 hours. But you know, we average.
Joe Rogan's not this good looking. I mean,
oh god, he's a good looking guy. He is a good looking guy. I'm just a fat guy in his basement doing a.
I was trying to be nice.
I appreciate it. But yeah, you know, it's people either start these things or they don't, you know, and it really hurts me to know that some people want to do something and they just don't know how, like, you know, we talk about like the fear of editing, the fear of all this equipment that I had to get. And, you know, the sound, I couldn't get the sound right forever. And that was really just killing me. I was down here with the wife, my poor wife. Now, keep in mind, my wife has a brain injury. I'm slapping, you know, earmuffs on her, trying to, can you hear this now? Can you hear, you know, and she's like, oh my God, I just want to go upstairs. But I came down here one day and I'm like, I'm not leaving this basement until I get the audio and the video correct. And we had to really make some changes, you know, then everything started coming together. But it's the people. It's the people that really make this happen. The relationships that we make, you know, having Brett here with me has been unbelievable. Having people like you, you know, and the funny thing is, so I knew him but didn't know him. So my daughter, his wife was my daughter's teacher. And I remember going to, you know, I don't know how old Lauren was, but she was in Converse.
Yeah. So 6th grade.
Roughly. And I remember telling her then I wanted to start a podcast. And she's like, oh, I got to talk to my husband. He does a podcast. And I don't remember was it just comic books back then?
I was starting to do, back then it was just the comic books. Now it's by the time you came over, it was more streamlined into what I'm doing now. Yeah.
So I was very intimidated by how smart he sounded. Right. So I'm like, oh, I'm probably not at his level, you know, but then I get to meet him. Not only is he smart, he's just an absolute stand-up guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? So again, those fears are like weird levels, you know what I mean? And it's kind of weird. Like you look back and you're like, yeah, I did hear about him doing the podcast, but back then I don't know if I was even closer.
So
ready.
And you know, I just promoted my business and I didn't even kind of put 2 and 2 together till I just remembered, you know, something I saw like 2 weeks ago. So this is the 10th anniversary of me starting this my screen printing business.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
So I think technically it's like July or August when I registered the URL, you know, that is now like our company website. And it was something that I talked about for 2 years. I was always like, I want to do something different, you know, and like I wasn't sure, and I kind of landed on that, and I planned it. It was 2 years. I saved money for like a year and a half, and then started narrowing down like what I was going to purchase and everything like that, and made a significant investment. Did it out of my garage, and solely lived off of friends and family, like referrals, like just constantly referrals, things like that. Exactly what you're talking about, like that support from people you know. By the 4-year mark, we bought out a competitor in the city. And then at that point, it became my wife's full-time job. And now we've grown. And so this was our 10-year anniversary.
Nice.
And it was we've done no advertising. All off of
just
relationships, word of mouth,
and
everything. And now, you know, now I employ 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
Our business employs 3 or 4 people. So it all goes the only one part was, you know, talking about getting going and like just getting over that fear. And then every other part of it was supported by friends and family. And then all the people you met along the way. Like I did not have to, you know, pay out to, not that advertising's bad, but like just to, you know, amplify, you know, what you're talking about, like the people that are, you know, supporting what you're doing and, and getting you there.
It's true. Like, you know, I tell people this, it's just like I own a business, although I don't make a penny off this, but think of it like I own a business where you come on the podcast and you support me that way. You know, people have a fear of like, you know, if I say the wrong thing and I do this for work, well, we don't have to talk about any of that.
Yep.
Now we can just talk about, do you like roses? Do you like gardening? I mean, I'm cool with that. We can talk about that. But I think that was one of the kind of like the wrong thing I did in the beginning, where I I had people that would come on, but I didn't think what they were going to talk about was interesting. And then it was just funny. Like I would have a conversation with somebody else, and they would bring up that topic, and we'd be talking about it. I'm like, that could have been an interesting conversation. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I've learned that I don't have horse blinders on at all anymore. And I think I got rid of that like the 4th or 5th episode. So now if somebody wants to come on, I'm just happy that they want to come on, and we'll just talk about anything, you know? So, yeah, if you know anybody out there, and I'm going to put it out to YouTube land, if you know anybody out there that wants to start their own gig, support them in starting their own gig, because you can make the world of difference in someone's life.
Yeah, it's life-changing. I mean,
it really is.
I mean, the support that, that I got, now my wife is her own boss. Ironically, a business I started as a hobby, she's now the CEO of, technically, and it's her full-time job. So she's and it's, again, all because of the support of people that supported us. It's
absolutely. So thank everybody out there for supporting the podcast. Thank Matt for coming back on again.
Thank you for having me.
He's definitely a sweet friend, and you are welcomed here anytime you want.
As long as the dogs are upstairs, I'm all set. I'll be over.
Yeah, and just drop that music knowledge on us. I mean, it's impressive.
My God. This guy's like a walking vault.
Yeah.
I could be all wrong on everything I said, too.
You know what? You sounded good. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, not too many people are going to be researching just based on the level of confidence you portray.
There
it's
we
fine.
go. Perfect.
Yeah. All right, guys. As always. Oh, before I forget, rainbowrescues.org. Our podcast is huge on animal rescue. So rainbowrescues.org. Donate anything that you can. Blankets, money, food. I mean, I'm telling you, these things are never ending. The vet bills that we incur would make you literally throw up.
Yeah.
And I think what's really cool about our rescue is we take rescues that would normally be put down, and we try to rehabilitate them. So sometimes, we're talking $8,000 for a vet bill. So, but we always find a way. It's very interesting. Different times of the year, people are very giving, and we appreciate that so much. So if you can get to rainbowrescues.org, Eye Candy Randy sports the Rainbow Rescue shirt with his Boba Fett helmet and his
humbug hat.
So what's funny? Like I really
He's
appreciate
covering every base he possibly can.
I really appreciate when people bring stuff to the podcast, because I try to focus it. So it's real sweet that they bring it. So I try to focus it. Although the helmet's mine, but the wife found Eye Candy Randy at a flea market. We had the shirt, but my friend Jeff brought the hat. So I think that's kind of nice. Joe bought the book. So after we're done the podcast, I'm going on Indiegogo while you're here, and we're going to donate and make that happen.
You don't have to do that.
Of course I'm going to do that.
I'm not going to stop you, but Thank you very much.
And then I'm going to go to bed because this guy's old. So
yeah,
I hear that.
Anytime past 9 o'clock, it's tough the next day. All right, guys. Thank you for joining the podcast today. And as always, peace.
See ya.